Today's scripture is Psalm 138. I give you thanks, O Lord, with my whole heart. Before the gods I sing your praise. I bow down toward your holy temple and give thanks to your name for your steadfast love and your faithfulness. For you have exalted your name and your word above everything. On the day I called, you answered me. You increased my strength of soul. All the kings of the earth shall praise you, O Lord, for they have heard the words of your mouth. They shall sing of the ways of the Lord, for great is the glory of the Lord. For though the Lord is high, he regards the lowly, but the haughty he perceives from far away. Though I walk in the midst of trouble, you preserve me against the wrath of my enemies. You stretch out your hand, and your right hand delivers me. The Lord will fulfill his purpose for me. Your steadfast love, O Lord, endures forever. Do not forsake the work of your hands.
Great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. I think that preaching is a lot like being on a game show. When you watch a game show at home in the comfort of your own living room with your own snacks, you come up with every answer. Watching Jeopardy, watching Family Feud, you know what all the answers are. But I'm told when you actually go on a game show, it's not quite so easy. When I was about 4 days old, I was told the story that my grandfather made his way down to the nursery to take a look at the new baby, and then made his way back to my mother's room and sat down, and first thing out of his mouth, he declared, "That boy is going to be a preacher." I don't know, I haven't heard much of the rest of the story, but I think there was a lot of crying involved. Have you ever had one of those times, one of those points in your life that no matter what you did, no matter how you got in the way, life was just great? For me, it was 1998. I was a brand new director of music in a brand new city. 3 years earlier, when I decided to take the job, I'm not sure that I could find St. Louis on a map. And yet, here I was. I had walked away from a marriage that had ended, 2 children that I adored, and was starting over again. My transition to life here at MUMC was surprisingly smooth, and God had already had friends waiting for me. Even before I knew it, God was putting the pieces and me back together. In June of 1998, a group of us embarked on a trip that would change us all. 40 members of the chancel choir were headed to New York City, my very first time, to perform at Carnegie Hall. There is a vicious rumor that I rode from the airport to the hotel with my nose pressed against the window of the bus, but don't believe that story. It was the opportunity of a lifetime, but little did I know that it wasn't the only highlight of that year. 10 days after the trip, I had another life-changing event. Dr. Maya Angelou, poet, author, and prophet, was speaking in St. Louis, and I was going to get a chance to hear her live and in person. That event changed me in a way I will never forget. That evening, we all received a copy of her latest book, and it is still one of my treasured possessions. As she spoke, I knew I was witnessing the divine, one called of God. Of the many things that she shared that night, this one remains with me. She writes, "Many things continue to amaze me even well into my 6th decade of life. I'm startled or taken aback when people walk up to me and tell me that they are Christians. My first response is the question, already? It seems to me a lifelong endeavor to try to live the life of a Christian. Being a Christian is a lifelong endeavor, and thus continued with my journey, my exodus from despair to hope. It's amazing that even at a time filled with sadness, such great things were in store. They say every good sermon has 3 points and a poem, and you've already heard me sing the poem, so here's my first point. I believe that all music is in the same key, and that key is hope. Hope is that which binds everything together and gives us the ability to go on. In our pain, in our exodus, hope leads the way. Today I wanted to offer a few ways to look at this important word, hope. Maybe these acronyms will inspire you. The first one is hold on, pain ends. Emily Dickinson wrote, "Hope is a thing with feathers that perches on the soul and sings the tune without words and never stops at all. Hope is symbolized by a bird, and it is always singing." The poem goes on to say that even in high winds, the bird still sings. In good times and in bad, all our music is in the same key of hope. Psalm 138, verses 1 and 2 says it this way, "I give you thanks, O Lord, with my whole heart. Before the gods I sing your praise. I bow down. I give thanks to your name for your steadfast love. On the day I called, you answered me. You increased the strength of my soul." In my increasing old age, I've become a lover of quotes. I even have a memo page on my phone, and I grab these bite-sized words of wisdom from everywhere, TV, conversations with friends, and there is one that I return to almost daily. Never let the things you want make you forget the things you have. If we spend all our time focusing on what should be, we miss the chance to give God thanks for the countless gifts we've been given. Hope is a promise for a better day. Chancel Choir has been immersed in spirituals for several months, many of them born out of tremendous suffering that we'll never really understand. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child and Deep River are both full of sorrow and grief, but they hint of a hopeful time when wrongs will be made right, when we cross over Jordan to the promised land. Whether our song is one of sorrow or loss or grief, hope is still present. Psalm 138, verse 7 reminds us, "Though I walk in the midst of trouble, you preserve me against the wrath of my enemies. You stretch out your hand, and your right hand delivers me." I believe that God gives us opportunities, and what we do with those opportunities are our gift back to God. There's a modern parable of two wolves. Many of you probably know this story. There's even a podcast based on this thought. A grandfather told his grandson, "We all have two wolves battling inside us. The good wolf represents kindness, bravery, and love, and the bad wolf represents greed, hatred, and fear. But they're always at war." The grandson asked, "Grandfather, which one wins?" He quietly replied, "The one you feed." Feeding into negativity, fear, and bitterness is rather commonplace. Some people even thrive on it. In fact, each day you can choose to like or dislike and continue swiping. And I want to say that if you're acquainted with any of these people in your lives, you have my permission to make some new friends. Connecting with the right people not only helps you spiritually, it makes you healthier too. Just this week, I heard about the Harvard study of adult development. Researchers have found that good relationships, spouse, partner, or friend, make you happier and healthier. There are true health benefits to having someone you can count on. So, my second point is this: quit feeding the wrong wolf. We live in a broken and hurting world. There's darkness everywhere. Just this week, stories after stories after stories. But we also live in a big, beautiful world of dreams and possibilities. But I think a lot of times we miss the little blessings because we're looking for the big ones. Living a life of hope is our purpose, and it's more about others than ourselves. A life of service is a fulfilling life. We must share that light. Or in hope language, we must help open people's eyes. In Psalm 138, the first part of verse 8 reads, "The Lord will fulfill his purpose for me. Your steadfast love, O Lord, endures forever." He repeats that familiar refrain. Did you catch it? Your steadfast love endures. Maybe for others, maybe for the reader, or maybe just for reassurance. My current prayer in life is to be present, and I can tell you it's not easy. Each day I strive to be the person who is living in the moment, giving my attention, listening without preparing to speak, and although I don't always get it right, it's rewarding to connect to people in a positive way. Being present allows me to leave my own baggage for a minute just to help carry somebody else's. I've been called a positive person more than once, and so this particular acronym spoke to me. Hang on to positive expectations. One of my friends this week posted the saying, "Happiness is an inside job." It's joyous and courageous to live each day expecting the best from the people you meet. Leading with positive thoughts encourages positive encounters. I want to encourage each of you to open a hope savings account. Start a gratitude list that you can go back and reread in those times when hope seems to fade. Remember and reflect on the times that have been the best for you and be thankful. I know that life isn't always full of hope and happy moments. I'm not that naive. The psalmist actually was realistic too. I love that after all of the praise for what God has done, there's just a little bit of doubt, that human side that comes in at the very end. Here's all of verse 8. "The Lord will fulfill his purpose for me. Your steadfast love, O Lord, endures forever." And then he concludes with, "Do not forsake the work of your hands." He's saying, after all you've done, Lord, don't let me down. As if God would, as if God could let us down. To this moment, this very day, I am having one of the best years of my life, and some of you are probably tired of hearing about it. And things are pretty great, but I confess that one of the things I don't do very well is publicly thank God for the great things that are happening in my life. For me, God's power is always related to God's purpose in my life. When you feel God's presence the strongest, I think that that's when God is leading. That's the difference between wisdom and intelligence. I know that life is full of ups and downs, so needless to say, the joy of this year, of 2018, is going right into my hope savings account. For my third point, I thought I'd end where I started with Dr. Angelo, because she said it much better than I ever could. Hope and fear cannot occupy the same space. Invite one to stay. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto